Welcome back to another video. It is day 4 of the UTR PTT Cardiff. And before my match, I actually got asked to do an interview, which was really cool. The video was posted on my channel a few days ago, so go and check that out. I'd just like to say a big thank you to Alex Hyman, who filmed the interview. He's done an incredible job of making me look half decent. Not an easy feat by any means. But yeah, it was a really cool experience, and it was really nice to meet some professionals who were actually really good at this sort of thing. But anyway, let's get into the tennis, what we're all here for. So I was taking on Noah Lopez of Switzerland. So what did I know about my opponent? I knew that he was left-handed, very quick, very good all-round player. This one was going to be tough. I'll be honest, going into this match, I didn't feel at my best. I felt slightly uncomfortable, and just like I wasn't really timing the ball great, like it didn't feel good off the racket. But these days happen. I've had plenty of them in the 8 years that I've been playing professionally. It's just about managing it and trying to do the best that you can in the situation. So early on, because I didn't feel fantastic off the ground and I saw my opponent was stood quite far back, I decided to try and throw in a little bit of serve and volley just to keep the points short. I know that my opponent was going to want to keep the rallies pretty long, and I felt like the longer they went on, the more that the match was going to be in my opponent's favour. At the moment, I am working on trying to be a lot more aggressive, so it was a game style that I was happy to play. So I made a few errors trying to be probably a little bit too aggressive, trying to force things a little bit too quickly in the rally. I needed to be a little bit more patient, so I was just trying to work my opponent a little bit more, trying to take a bit of time away, and then made a really stupid decision with that drop shot and managed to give away the break. But again, it's still early doors in the set. Breaks at this stage don't always mean the end of the world. So I was 3-1 down in the first set, but I'd actually started to feel a little bit more comfortable, a little bit more settled, and I was starting to move forward pretty effectively. Credit to my opponent, he was making things very tough, chasing down pretty much every ball, and he was very difficult to get the ball past. Annoyingly, just tried to be a little bit too acute on that volley. I should have punched it. Situations like that just require a little bit more composure. And mistakes like that were really starting to cost me, almost putting pressure on myself and my own serve. So I was 4-1 down, but determined to keep fighting, trying to find a way. So I was 4-1 down, but I was actually starting to play really well. I felt like I'd relaxed a little bit and the ball was now popping off the strings a little bit more. My timing felt great and my movement was starting to feel light. It was starting to feel pretty easy, and I was starting to get chances on my opponent's serve. So managed to get my first break point of the match, and I knew that I was going to have to work for it. I felt like I put some pretty good pressure on my opponent, but he managed to hold on to his serve, and I kind of knew in the back of my mind that this set was probably done. So my focus now was almost trying to relax and making sure that I was setting the intention to play aggressive, ready for a second set. Obviously, I'd love to make a comeback and win the first set. That's obviously the goal, but it's just good to be prepared. So I was really starting to feel comfortable now, putting a lot of pressure on my opponent's serve. So managed to get my first break serve, but it was still a long way back into this match. There were things that needed tidying up on my service game, so I needed to refocus ASAP because I was still under quite a lot of pressure. Mistakes like this were starting to cost me. It was just a lack of discipline. It should have been way higher over the net from that position in the court. I was stood quite far behind the baseline. So annoyingly, I was facing a set point on my serve, made a poor decision, gave away the break and the first set. Starting the second set, I was really keen to see if I could improve on the first set, start to play aggressive, move forward. The serve and volley at the right time was really starting to work. So annoyingly gave away the break with that volley, should have put it away, just wasn't really expecting it to come straight at me. And in the second set, things were starting to move quite quickly. My opponent had the momentum. I was doing my best to try and slow him down. Funny thing is, I was actually loving playing like this. I really need to do more of this in the future coming forward, trying to be the aggressor, not just with hitting the ball hard and hitting the ball heavy, but actually trying to move forward the majority of the time, taking the court. I really feel like the level of the second set, even though the scoreline was pretty similar, had definitely surpassed that of the first set. We were both pretty locked in. I was just finding it difficult to get over the line in games, which is funny because that's what tennis is all about. Managed to get one of the breaks back, playing some pretty decent tennis. I felt like I was playing pretty well, I just wasn't closing the games out when I needed to. If I'd have had that break at the start of the second set, the match could have looked completely different. So, unfortunately, couldn't keep hold of my serve, shanked forehand, and ended up losing the match 6-3, 6-2. Credit to my opponent, I thought he was very tough, very hard to break down, but I definitely needed to be better. So, it's Friday, the last day of the group stages in the UTR PTT. My opponent today was Ewan McIntosh from Scotland. Very good player, very solid, hits a big ball, so I knew this one was going to be a tough battle as well. It was weird, I started off with a similar feeling to the day before, a little bit uncomfortable, not timing the ball as well as I normally do. Things just felt a little bit more uncoordinated, but I was determined to fight my way through it. Just doing simple stuff like trying to breathe a little bit more, trying to move my feet as much as I can, and then trying to take time away whenever possible. Like I said earlier, this isn't the first time that I've come into matches not feeling great, not really high on confidence. Just got to deal with it and work through it as best I can. My opponent actually started off playing really well. He was playing very aggressive, hitting his forehand pretty big, hitting quite a lot of winners early on. So I was almost trying to just ride out the storm a little bit and make him play as much as I could. So we were locked in at 2-all, no chances to break yet, and I was just determined to try and find a way through. But with shots like that, my opponent wasn't making it easy. First break point of the match, So I was determined just to try and be as tough as possible, not give anything away for free, no cheap errors. So we were in a bit of a battle here at 2-all, had a few chances to break. I was in and out of playing a little bit passive and then a little bit more aggressive. And my opponent was also stepping up and hitting some pretty big forehands. So this part was all about staying as mentally tough as possible and just making sure that I was making the most of the opportunities that I had. So I managed to squeak the break, probably not in the way I would have wanted to. I probably would have wanted to win the point a little bit more, but I was kind of just doing the best that I could with the way that I was feeling. I really wanted to make sure in this game that I made the most of having the momentum. Didn't want to give away any cheap errors, but I wanted to try and at least stay a little bit more aggressive. Definitely wasn't sure about that serve. At this point, my level was really starting to improve. I was in a completely different place than I was at the start of the set when I was a little bit passive, a little bit more uncomfortable. Still definitely wasn't at my best, but I was feeling good.
Out. Advantage, Kotkin.
So I managed to sneak the break and get the first set. I felt like the momentum was really with me at this point, so I was really keen to get a good start to the second set. I'd have loved to have won that point. After hitting a pretty ridiculous return, my opponent now had break point in the first game, and he'd actually changed it up a little bit. He was starting to play a little bit slower, a little bit higher and heavier. So I was going to have to be slightly more patient and just work the point a little bit more, especially when I'm under that little bit of scoreboard pressure. So I battled through and got hold, and now I was up on my opponent's serve in a pretty decent position, ready to try and take the second set. That was a rocket. So I got the break and the momentum, and I was feeling good behind my serve.
Out.
I'm not really sure how I won that point. That shot is something that I've never hit in my life, but I'll take it. So I know on the scoreline that it says 4-love, but I was still having to work incredibly hard. Don't feel like the scoreline is an indicator of how hard or easy the match was. My opponent was still playing very well, and I was still having to, like I say, work hard and get through games.
Out. Out. Dios. Advantage.
So, pretty tough battle, but in the end, I ended up taking it 6-3, 6-love. A pretty solid performance, but there's definitely areas that I need to improve on. So I'm really looking forward to a little bit of time in between tournaments to get those things done. And hopefully, when I come back, my level will be far better. So that is it for today. I'd just like to say a big thank you for watching, tuning in. If you haven't done already, then it really helps me if you could subscribe. But no worries if not. Stay tuned for the next episode, and I'll see you next time.